This video is for business leaders who want to mix and match personalities in groups and get optimal or maximal results. Personalities are relatively stable over time. Unless there's some reason for a person's personality to change, it will change over a lifetime, over longer periods of time, but typically slowly, unless there's some sort of traumatic external event or some traumatic internal personal event. In other words, personalities do change over time, but they're relatively stable and they normally don't change that fast. Because of this, you can take advantage of some things which are important in a workplace. Understanding personality types when you want to assemble teams to get the targeted results by understanding personality types, or more accurately, personality traits. I'll put a link right there about this. The ocean or big five personality traits are the only ones that are considered scientifically valid or science-wide consensus, a valid measure of personality. So you've probably heard of different ones, Myers-Briggs and that, but of any sort of personality science accepted across the board is the ocean personality traits. These are, O means openness to novel experiences, open to experience. Conscientiousness means what it sounds like, people who are less likely to be late, who tend to keep their promises, show up for appointments on time, things like that. Extroversion is how outgoing you are. Then there's agreeableness, and that is how agreeable you are. Not just necessarily how friendly you are, but how often you're inclined to agree with most people in most situations. And neuroticism, which is by far the worst they could have chosen, but it does help you remember it. Neuroticism makes it sound like you're crazy, when in fact it's more like you're more emotionally responsive or sensitive. None of these traits, being high or low on any of them, are unto themselves negative. That's one of the reasons it's dangerous. In the many years I've been teaching English, I've noticed that groups, whether it's classes or young kids, mature adults, senior adults, that classes or groups of people have collective personalities. So it's interesting because it's not just as simple as everybody together makes a homogeneous personality, but it kind of does. That is, different extremes in these different traits will tend to average each other out. So if you have a high extrovert in the class, they can sort of raise the overall energy or outgoingness of the class because they are high energy. And it sort of gives social permission, social safety for other members of the group to be more extroverted. And the same is true the other way, that too many introverts or low extroverts will tend to make the class or the group much harder to share things and usually much quieter and shyer. And too many of either can make a challenging situation. Too many extroverts and they all want to talk at the same time. Too many introverts. I had a class many years ago, and it was one of the most collectively introverted groups of students I'd ever seen. And normally young kids are happy to sing. And this was like a Halloween class. We're singing songs, and it was the only time I've ever had to sing in whisper. Oh, my monster. We literally had to sing in a whisper because we had an exaggerated average where almost everybody in the class was low on extroversion, and therefore nobody really wanted to sing. They enjoyed it, but we literally had to whisper sing to get them to do it. It was kind of an interesting experience. But also the collective personality is changed by the interactions between the different personality traits. Also, it's the existing relationships between members of the group. I had a high-ranking student. This was at a major national company. They had office, the C-suite executives. One of them was much higher ranking than the rest of it. It was interesting because he was an extrovert, he was playful, he was outgoing, he was one of the eldest members in the group, he was highest ranking, but he also had the weakest English. So it was interesting because he was in this group where normally he is the senior, the big boss of most of the members of this group. He became quite introverted, even though that's not his base personality, because he probably didn't want to be seen as lesser than them in something, which would be his English skill. And it actually took quite a bit of coaxing and assessment feedback to the group. It was a very progressive company before he really started to try harder. He felt more psychological safety, but it was interesting because despite his extroversion, his relationship with the other people in the room caused him to go in a different direction and to become more introverted and avoid trying and risking mistakes. If you consider these 5 big personality traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and the neuroticism or sensitivity of members of the group, it can help you put people together in such a way where they complement one another rather than canceling each other out in a negative way. If you have something that's a challenging or contentious or controversial decision to make, the right number of low agreeableness members could actually be a good thing. Low agreeable people, and I know this because I am a low agreeable in that trait, you have to give me a good reason to agree with you. I won't agree to go along with the group. I will tell people when I think they're full of shit. And that's a good thing, because if everybody agrees, then that means bad things happen in terms of the quality of things. There's nobody there to challenge, and low agreeableness people are challengers. That's something you actually want in the room. That said, too many low agreeable people, and it could just be an argument, or nobody agrees on anything and everybody's trying to one up each other. So again, none of this is bad, but knowing these things is really important. So I think the Big Five is brilliant, but what you really have to understand is, unfortunately, despite the fact that the framework itself is good, handwritten tests to type people or to give people these personality traits are notoriously unreliable. If I'm writing a job interview and I see, oh, okay, well, I know low agreeableness means you can't work good in groups, which is nonsense, but that's how it's going to come across. I can cheat. So it would be better to actually use the categories, but not in the way you think. Use them based on grouping people according to their behavior at work, their real openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism that other people, yourself or other people, have observed, and use those to form groups so that you can find a target mix, a collective personality trait pool, which will give you the best results. That's it for Crush It Club 137, Maximize Group Results. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.